All right. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning. If it's morning where you are, good evening. If it's evening where you are, we're happy that you're here with us today. Welcome to December's CMWS Collaborative Mentoring Webinar Series webinar. We're so excited that you're all with us today for this conversation around navigating the digital world. While we're waiting for folks to come on in and get settled, please drop your name and where you're calling in from in the chat, just so we can get to know you all a little bit more. I have a couple poll questions that I prepared to get a sense of who's in the room with us and how we're feeling about this specific topic. But again, welcome. We're so glad you're here. Drop your name and where you're calling in from in the chat. Don't forget to hit the three dots on the chat box to share it with everybody, not just the hosts. Just give folks another minute or so to get settled. Okay, perfect. Matt kicking us off from Providence, Rhode Island. I love Providence. I used to go to Providence all the time. Okay, we got Virginia, we got Georgia, we got Washington. Perfect. I didn't introduce myself yet. I'm Jake Sullivan, he, him pronouns. I'm based in Baltimore, Maryland. I work with Mentor National. Awesome. Starting to see everybody. Awesome. California, Alabama, Wyoming. I feel like I'm singing the state song. Tennessee, Virginia. We're getting so much good representation from all over the place. For folks who are just joining, welcome to this month and the last webinar of 2025 from us, Navigating the Digital World, Youth Voices and Strategies for Healthy Online Engagement. We have a really amazing panel of young people and mentoring professionals today to navigate this conversation at a few different levels. So we're hoping that you'll get some great takeaways. As you're getting settled in, as you can see, people are dropping their names and where they're calling in from in the chat. I think we'll get started so we can jump right into the conversation. We can go to the next slide to share some tips for engagement. Awesome. So you're already doing one of them. You're using the chat box, which is great. So continue to do that throughout the webinar. Share resources. If there's something that you have an idea for that we respond or that you have a response to something that we're presenting on, please drop that in the chat. Respond to the presenters. I don't have it on here, but there's also the emojis. Make sure to make use of those as our presenters are talking. If you have any questions, please try to put those in the Q&A box. That's also in that bottom toolbar on your screen so that we have them organized for when the time comes for a dedicated audience Q&A section. The webinar is being recorded and it'll be sent out both through email, but it'll also be posted on our website in about a week, maybe in the next few days, alongside these slides, any other resources that we talk about. And then also on the bottom of your screen, you'll see the CC button. If you want live captions, those are also available. And I think that's it. Otherwise, I already mentioned, but the three dots, make sure to click those so that you're responding to everybody, not just to the presenters. So we'll go on to the next slide to introduce Bianca Myrick, Myrick, excuse me, right? Myrick? Yes. Who is an amazing facilitator of these CMWS webinars. She's been doing this for years. She's mom to a teen son. Her background is in elementary education and public administration. She's the executive director of Pretty Purpose, a nonprofit that provides girl-centered mentorship, excuse me. She's also an adjunct professor at Virginia State University, is the owner of her own consulting business, and then also loves history, reading, and dance. So Bianca's a very busy person, but we're always appreciative when she brings together these webinars for us. So pass it over to Bianca. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again at the end of the webinar.
Thank you so much, Jake. I'm so excited to introduce our panel today. It's a really special panel to me from a really special program located in Central Virginia that does mentorship for boys. And my son is actually a mentee of this program. The work that they do is very special. So first, I want to introduce Michael Brown. Michael is a freshman at Virginia Commonwealth University, and Michael is studying to become a nurse. If you know, you know, VCU is a big medical school here in Virginia. He is a volunteer with the police cadets and local rescue squads, and he is a mentee and ambassador with the award-winning mentorship program, Launch for Life. Our second panelist is Adam Goodman. Adam is a sophomore at Trinity Episcopal School right here in Richmond. He is the captain of the JV football team, but he also plays varsity football and varsity lacrosse. He was selected to be on the 2028 All Showcase team for lacrosse, and he is also a mentee and ambassador with Launch for Life. And I'm so happy to introduce David Krisafi. David is a dad to two teen sons. He's the co-founder and executive director for Launch for Life. David has 22 years of experience in law enforcement, a master's in clinical mental health. He is a licensed resident in counseling and a youth sports coach. So, David is very busy, very, very busy. So we are going to get right into our conversation. David, I actually want to start with you before we hear from Michael and Adam. So, like, set the stage for us. What are like some of the most common concerns or questions that you're getting from parents about their teen boys and technology? But also, what are you like seeing in your work in the law enforcement field around cyber issues that are honestly keeping you up as a dad at night?
Sure, sure. Yeah. A lot of fear, right? A lot of lack of understanding of this environment, which creates unknowns, which creates anxiety. So a lot of the questions I get from the moms in our program, also from parents of kids that I counsel, are around, first of all, when should my son have X? Whether that's when should my son or daughter have a phone? When should my son or daughter have social media platforms, chat applications? And then the second question is usually around monitoring. Those are some of the major questions we have. And those questions are very specific, kid dependent, right? Not every kid is created equal and matures the same and it has the same responsibilities. And not every relationship with your child is the same either. So we talk a lot about when it comes to when and what they're supposed to have is, around the communication between the parent and the child, and I'll go into that a little bit later on one of the other slides. But when it comes to some of the fears, right? Some of the things that I see in my program, I see both in my law enforcement profession and in my counseling profession, is around scams, particularly with boys around sextortion. And that is when another party pretending to be someone else solicits a nude photo from that young man and then starts to extort them and threaten to send this photo out to the universe and all their contacts if they don't send them money. There's been several suicides around this scam. And so it's very scary to parents. We've had a couple kids in our program deal with that, and moms have come to me and we work through that and we talk through that on how to deal with those situations. Another one is obviously bullying. I tell all the parents, and I'm going to tell all of you, I think this generation has the hardest than any other generation before us. And the reason why I believe that is because they don't have a break. They don't have a break of the information that's being consumed. They don't have a break from any social conflict that they're dealing with or comparison that they see. It's constantly coming at them every which way with technology. So they don't have an escape. Whereas, if you're my age of 46 years old, if I was bullied at school, I went home, right? And if you were trying to bully me again, you'd have to knock on my door or you'd have to call my landline, which my mom was gonna screen all that stuff. So these kids don't have that break. They don't have that boundary, right? They have group chats, they have Snapchat, they have social media, so it's constantly in their face. So bullying's another thing that they worry about. But also, what I've seen in law enforcement, I worked domestic terrorism for approximately 4.5 years, is radicalization, right? Usually that comes from isolation, right? Isolating oneself because they don't feel like they fit anywhere, and they feel comfortable in this online environment, and then they want to find a home. They want to find belonging. We all want that. We all want friendship. We all want acceptance. We all want to feel good and have somebody be proud of us. And oftentimes kids will navigate towards, especially boys will navigate into group chats, sites, message boards, whatever they are, Discord, these type of things, and they will get sucked into these radicalized ideas. Um, and I know Michael will touch on some of this as well from his experience. So those are some of the major things that sort of some of the fears that we see in our program and I see in my law enforcement and counseling profession.
Yikes. This is like a little scary because I know you, David, and like I know that like what you're saying is true from just the work that you do. Um, so I want to hear from Michael and Adam. Like we hear so much about the harmful and the toxic of like social media, but I also know it's how you connect with friends, it's how you share your creativity, it's how you find community. So now can you kind of help us understand like both sides? What's good about your digital world and then what's hard about it?
Got you. So, there are a myriad of downsides when it comes to social media. If I'm being honest, as David was talking about, there is a whole lot of polarization, whether it becomes from a political lens or a racial lens or even a sexual lens in regards to how really, well, not to get too deep, but there's always going to be a pipeline that could lead to hate. If you're like on the right or on the left, you're going to be trained to hate the other side. If you're religious or you're not, you're going to be trained to hate the other side. You know what I'm saying? And that is you can see it in your friends and how it low key shifts their mentality when they view other people. You know, and that is like the number, not the it's not the most dangerous, but it's one of the most prevalent downsides of social media. But one of the most like harmful downsides is that people that are isolated and don't aren't connected with like their friends or family, they're more likely to be victimized in the sense of grooming, getting groomed or getting scammed. And honestly, it is more prevalent than you think. But the problem about that is it's not really talked about because that is such a sore spot for people. I never knew about what some of my friends been through until I talked to them about what I've been through. And that opened up the alley for them to for us to like understand each other. But it does like social media, it is very dangerous, but it also has great positives in the sense that if you are a minority of any sort, whether it be racial or again, you know, racial, sexual, any way you identify, and you look around your immediate area and nobody's like you, if you go online, you can always find online support because you can always find people that are like you. And that is very beautiful. It also can help educate you, whether it be like in your hobbies or it could keep you up to date in politics. Because not people don't read newsletters no more. They like see what happened. Like current news. You can see current news faster on social media. And it helped me learn about my hobby of like learning about cars and whatever. And like the last positive about it is that social media expose you to the diversity that life have to offer. Like if you're in a small if you're in a small county where there's like only people that are like you, the same race, the same sex, well, no, not that, the same sexual orientation, right? And you wouldn't understand what it's like to meet somebody of a different race or religion or spirituality, you know, on the social media gives you an avenue to not be like to it allows you to be open-minded and know that there's more people than you are like what you are like, if that makes sense.
No, thank you so much, Michael. Okay, so you just gave us the lowdown on social media. Let's talk a little bit about AI. The chat GPT, there's so many different ones. AI generated content. How are you and your peers using these tools? And like, what do adults like me need to know that we probably don't?
So you see, there's numerous downsides to AI. It really ranges from all sorts of different things. There's a lot of cheating, there's a lot of fraud, and there's just a general like over reliance on AI. Uh, but what we don't really like listen to or hear about that much is like the upsides of AI. So I think it's important to be open-minded about it. Uh, we can use AI for a lot of different things. We can use it for studying. We can use it for organization. Uh, we can use it for writing support, all those different things. And AI is really a good tool for that. It just gives you like immediate help, you know? So like you don't have to rely on flipping through like the pages of a book, or you don't have to wait for your friend to like respond to you about some sort of assignment that day. So yeah, there's a lot of upsides, obviously. There's also a lot of downsides. Another downside is that people's jobs essentially are getting taken over or, you know, replaced with AI workers. But really, AI can't mimic that creative thinking. They can only influence yourself and the actions you take with it. And so we have a statistic here. It says out of more than 200 million writing assignments reviewed by Turnitin AI detection, 1 out of 10 assignments detected AI, and 3 out of 100 assignments were mostly AI generated. So that really shows us how it's not really a majority of kids over relying on AI. It's a small group of them, and it's just an overall good it can be an overall good influence, really dependent on your maturity level and what you're willing to use it for. So I would really think that it's important for us to be open-minded and just in general welcome the idea of AI while also not letting ourselves get too hooked on it or too over reliant, because that can mess up our creative thinking. So, yeah.
Okay, so before I get to the next question, Adam, would you say, and I'm just thinking about here in Central Virginia, a lot of school divisions have kind of banned the AI. Do you think schools should be maybe giving students tools on how to ethically use AI?
Yeah, I think it's actually very important for teachers and principals to uh you know give lessons on how AI really should be used, because it's really easy to misuse it as like a student, because it's just like the quickest or easiest route basically. But it is really important for uh teachers and schools to all kind of explain to students how it should be used, and I think that it can be used. I think that it's a really good studying tool. I actually used it as a studying tool for my midterm on French, and I actually got a pretty good grade. I got an 86, which is really a step up from what I was before. So, yeah, I think it's good for teachers and principals, schools in general to, educate kids on the use of AI.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Adam. And so I guess you're saying like when you can put what you need into the AI and it'll spit back like the study questions and stuff like that. No, that's good to know. My college students they struggle with the use of AI ethically. And I wonder if there's an opportunity that educators are missing um, when we're not showing youth how to use it in a meaningful way. So thank you for sharing that. So uh, I guess I would say, uh, excuse me, let's chat a little bit about just like online safety. like what are some of the actual risks that you see that adults either are kind of like, we're overreacting to or we're completely missing? What do you think we should actually be paying attention to? And this could go to Michael or Adam.
Well, I think that it's really important to pay attention to like the age you're putting your child on, like social media or technology. Their maturity level matters a lot. Um, because oftentimes uh you hear about younger children maybe getting taken advantage of, whether that be emotionally or physically. Uh and I mean, it depends on how like your mental state is really. So it's important for you to be well educated on like the risks, and your maturity level needs to be rather high to be able to realize like when you might be getting taken advantage of, or when you're at risk of getting taken advantage of. Um, I also think that adults really need to pay attention to not always older people with relationships considering youth. I think youth on youth relationships can also be really emotionally damaging. I think they can get very toxic, especially online. Um, and there's a lot of risk there about your mental health and other things regarding children and youth relationships. It can really be detrimental.
I believe that youth they should be monitored in what they're engaging in, because that is what will dictate if they're using online like in a healthy way or in an unhealthy way. So if they're commenting under posts that are like hateful and you see that they're like agreeing with it, then you gotta like have a conversation with them. Or if they're actively in people's comments, not even comments, but like DMing people like hateful stuff or bullying, that's when you have to like draw the line and be like, hey, this is not what we're gonna do. But it's usually just like what they're engaging in is what I would say to pay attention to.
No, thank you. So, like, Michael, if you're a parent, what's
Hmm.
what's one rule that you would implement?
It's an old rule. It's like if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say it.
Mhm.
And treat people with respect. Treat people how you
So
would be treated.
I like it. So if you caught your child not being respectful online, they're getting a consequence for that.
Yep. Yeah.
Got you. Okay. All right. So, David, based on what you just heard from Michael and Adam and what you're seeing in your program, how can mentoring programs meet youth where they are digitally while still maintaining those appropriate boundaries and safety?
Yeah, there's a few things you can do. Obviously, I want to point out that technology is not going away. So it's important for us to embrace it in a healthy way, right? So as mentor programs and as mentors, I think it's important for us to understand how we can do that. And one of them is communication, right? Yes, we all have events where we see each other in person, but there might be opportunity to engage in the margins of those events, or in the margins of those face-to-face activities. And so communication, we have that ability now. We have that ability to do that where maybe we didn't, 30 years ago in, operating in a mentor program. But we have to be comfortable and it has to be safe, right? And that comes with communication, right? That comes with talking with both the youth, the mentor, and the parent, and making sure everybody is comfortable in that environment. And if there's any discomfort, that there doesn't have to be engagement until there is. right? We don't need to force this kind of communication if there's a party in that space that's not comfortable. So that's the first part of it. A lot of that comes with trust, right? Trust in the mentor, number one, and then trust in the form of communication, and both things are important. And then you have to understand, like, what are your goals in communication, right? Are you just checking in? Are you making plans? Are you just conversating, making sure they're keeping up with their grades? What is the purpose of the communication? What is the goal of the communication? And then what type of platform do we need to use, or who do we need to engage, right? Maybe if it's just making plans, you can just simply communicate with the parent, right? You don't need to communicate with the youth. But if you want to have, some deeper conversations, maybe the youth comes to you with some issue that he's concerned about, or he's having trouble with, right? And he wants to engage with you through text message on this. That's a different avenue, right? And I want to say that because I want to make this clear that today's youth are more comfortable texting you what's going on than telling you face to face. And that's okay, right? So embrace that, right? Embrace that opportunity. Don't look at it as they're hiding. Don't look at it as, you're failing as a mentor. Look at it as an opportunity. Because I don't care how a youth opens up to me as long as they are, right? As long as they're coming to me and talking to me. I don't care what platform they do it. I don't care if it's face to face or on text message or through email or on the telephone. Um, so understand your goals for the communication. Keep it simple. Don't overthink it. Early on in our program, we were trying to find these platforms that are, have these monitoring and the safety and we had, like, make sure you have two mentors per communication and all these type of things, and it just didn't work. It was cumbersome, and honestly, it was unnecessary because ultimately what we got to was um, the communication is the key. Communication with the mentor, communication with the parent, and making sure everybody's understanding what's being communicated and how it's being communicated, whatever platform you choose to use. Now, of course, we don't want to use certain platforms. I would avoid using Snapchat, for instance, because messages disappear, right? And the person receive, the two parties receiving the messages can, if you screen capture it, they're notified, right? So there's certainly platforms you don't want to use. I wouldn't use encrypted platforms because there's ways of deleting those messages and never receiving those. We use text message. That's what we encourage our mentors and mentees to use, is just plain old text message, right? Most kids use them. Most adults use them, and they're recoverable. Even if you delete your messages, again, I've been in law enforcement for 22 years, I can still recover those messages if I need to. So that's a platform that can remain safe. Again, it is up to communication, but don't overthink the platform you're trying to use or how you're trying to do that or the rules around it, right? Because it can get cumbersome and it can actually prevent communication. Um, Social media, gaming, chat application boundaries, right? We actually tell our mentors not to accept friend requests on social media, Instagram, Facebook, right? Um, and there's specific reasons for that. One being that it's sort of your private life, right? And one, I don't know, I can't vet everything a mentor is putting on their social media platform, right? And so I don't want to get into a situation in which maybe they have a political view or a religious view or a social view, and they're posting those things and potentially influencing or hurting the mentee, right? But also there needs to be a boundary between that personal life and that mentor-mentee relationship. So we do not allow for social media platform sharing. Gaming, we encourage, if we have a mentor that's a gamer and we have a mentee that's a gamer, share those tags, right? It's an opportunity to engage with the mentee of something that they have a hobby in and they're interested in, right? And especially if you do as well. Now, that being said, you want to make sure that the parent is aware of what game you're using, right? If the parent's unaware that their son's using or playing Call of Duty at age 12, right? You don't want to jump on there on Call of Duty with them, right? Because then you have an issue where a parent's going to be upset with that engagement. But gaming can be a great platform for engaging with your youth. I mentioned chat applications again, encrypted chat applications I would not use, Snapchat I would not use. And then the last thing you can do is check in often. We do check-ins with parents. If we know mentors and mentees are engaging with text messages or on gaming platforms or whatever, we check in with the parents regularly. We check in with the mentors regularly. And then we're always doing check-ins with our youth as well to make sure that everybody's comfortable, everything's on the up and up. The other thing I would note that's not on the slide is and this is around your goals of communication, is setting boundaries for yourself as a mentor, right? So if I remember early on, I was in a group chat and there were memes starting to be and gifts starting to be thrown out that I was not comfortable with, right? In that group chat. So I had to set a boundary with the boys. So understand it's hard, right? Sometimes as a mentor, you don't want to act as someone that is trying to discipline them, but there's a difference between discipline and boundaries, right? And so you have to set boundaries in any of these platforms. And so oftentimes I don't engage in group texts with other youth, right? Usually if there's group texts with other mentors, with one mentee, absolutely. But when there's multiple youth, I tend to not engage in that conversation or be involved in that conversation.
Thank you. This is really, really good. So I feel like you just gave us a really good framework for you know, using technology, but having safeguards up, but also not creating unnecessary barriers. There was a question about what do you suggest doing if youth are often on their phones during mentoring meetings? So I will tell you that I run a mentorship program. We support about 200 girls across 20 some schools. And for us, the policy is when they come into the space, we put our cell phones away. I know that is a little bit of a stringent policy, but it's the facilitators and mentors put their phones away too. But we just like to hold sacred space for making actual connections. David, would you want to maybe hop in and answer? What is your program doing?
Yeah, so we do something very similar. In fact, every year our graduate program, our second year group, does a capstone project where they either build something for our program or they volunteer in the community. Last year's graduate program built a cell phone jail. And so we bring our cell phone jail to every event, and the kids put their cell phones and we lock it up. And we allow them now if there's a break, right? Sometimes we have food and stuff and there's a break, we'll let them engage with their phones during that break. But when we're engaging in the activity or the lesson plan or whatever we're doing, those cell phones are in the cell phone jail. And honestly, while initially it's sort of like confronting to the kids, they forget their phones. Once they start engaging in the activity, they don't even remember that they have a phone. So we find it a very effective policy.
Thank you. Now, I know that you do a lot of family engagement. Your program has a whole moms group where you curate specific kind of like workshops and a community around how to support moms. So, question, when parents are coming to you about their son's technology use, like what's your framework for helping them figure out if something is just normal or if it needs intervention? And I know I have used you as a sounding board before. And yes, you do. David will talk you off the edge, people. He will say, calm down. This is just normal. So, what's the framework for that?
Yeah, look, it's very understandable as a parent not to know what normal is because this is new, right? And most of us as adults don't even know how to deal with cell phones. We don't even know what's healthy for us. So how do we know what's healthy for a child? But ultimately what I would tell you to look for is less about words and more about action, more about behaviors, right? Your child's behavior will tell you whether this cell phone or this technology is affecting them or not. Here I have a little chart about, how to keep, technology, healthy for your child. And these are some of the things that you can do. Obviously we want, as the adult, you want to own the phone, right? You want to have access to the phone. You want to be able to see who they're calling, who they're texting, and those type of things, right? So you want to avoid your child owning the phone or acting like it's his phone, right? He or she has to understand that like this is borrowed phone, right? I'm paying for this, I own this thing, and it's a privilege to use it. It's not an entitlement, right? And most kids start to feel like they are entitled to this piece of technology when it's actually an earned tool. Um, Having rules in the house, right? When can they use it? What kind of content can they see? How they can communicate? How often can they communicate, right? And as Michael points out, what type of communication are we expecting you to have with your friends, right? Are we being disrespectful? Are we, or are we staying in the realm of a healthy engagement in adolescence or young adulthood? Um, and this is when I come, the third part is when I talk about behavior, right? How many of you in this listening out there who have kids, when you ask your kid, how are you doing? They just simply say, fine, I'm good, right? Don't take that at face value, right? Watch their behavior, right? Are they staying, do they have levels of positivity, right? Are they continuing to communicate with you? What are they interested in their activities, their hobbies, right? Are they sleeping well? Are they eating well? Are they getting their basic needs met, right? Or are these things changing, right? Are they less interested in the things that they used to love? Right? Are they not eating well? Are they showing signs of anxiety? Are they isolating themselves? Right? Do they have poor body image? Right? They starting to talk negatively about themselves? Right? These are signs of behavior changes that technology can cause, and we have to start to understand. We have to start focus on the behavior of the child. If you start seeing some of these things, all right, now we got to start worrying about what's going on that phone, right? And if we're seeing that and we're worried about what's going on there on that phone, we need to start checking on that, right? We need to start having conversations with our child. Um, and that goes to that level of communication. One of the requirements of my sons, and I tell this of parents, is you have to engage with me. You have to communicate with me. You cannot isolate yourself in your room, right? We have to have some level of communication. And when I ask you how your day is, fine is not a good enough answer, right? And these are the rules we have. And if they don't hold up their end, then they can't have that communication device because I need to have a level of comfort of understanding what's going on in their day, right? Um, and then parents have to be the guide, right? I say this to parents all the time. I don't care what it is. You can't expect something of a child that you cannot do yourself. You just can't. So if you're on your phone 24/7, guess what your kid's going to do? If you're on social media posting whatever, your whole life on Instagram, what do you think your kid's going to do? If you're yelling and screaming or fighting with somebody on social media or getting into political debates or having hate speech online, guess what your kids are going to do? Right? So you can't expect something of your child that you can't do yourself. And that is really, what a mentoring program is we have to model for them. So we don't allow our mentors on their phones during our activities either, because we want them to model the behavior at our events. And the same thing goes with parents.
No, this is so good. So, like, really moving away from the do as I say, not as I do, but like, no, like, you have to be the model.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. No, thank you for that. So, and this question is for any of you. Technology and social media can be very isolating, even though it's supposed to connect us. So, like, how can programs help young people build real connection, both online and offline? What does that look like in practice?
So, again, I'll go back to mentors need to model the behavior, right? We have to communicate with one another, and we have to model that behavior that we expect of the mentees. And by doing that, we have to create in the moment opportunities at our in-person events, right? We have to be engaging. Early on in our program, I saw a difficulty in that with our mentors, because when you first come in as a mentor, right, you're not quite sure what it is. We provide them training, but at the end of the day, when you get in it, when you're real live mentoring, it's like, all right, crap, what do I do, right? What am I allowed to do? What do I say? What do I not say? But so we decided to start to develop some really active events to start to fulfill that engagement. What I found with boys in particular, obviously I have two sons and I have a mentor program with boys, so I'm not quite. Bianca could probably talk on what works best for the girls, but with boys is they open up when they're active, right? It's same with my counsel when I'm counseling adolescent boys, right? If I'm sitting across from them and I'm peppering them with questions, I'm gonna get the I'm fine, right? It's when I take out the Uno cards and we're playing Uno, then they start to open up, right? So the engagement with my sons, we used to shoot hoops and I used to ask them questions. And they don't want to feel like the spotlight's on them. So creating these in the moment opportunities, right? So that when they are engaged, they start to open up. Engage in curiosity and open-ended communication, right? Be really curious as to what they're doing in technology, right? Learn from them, right? Be open-minded. I'll give you an example. The first year, there was a kid that did anime. He did anime sort of drawings on his phone. And I sat down with him for one, I don't know anything about anime, right? And I'm not an artist at all. I have zero artistic abilities whatsoever. And so I sat down with him for 45 minutes and I was just really curious of what anime was and how he did these drawings. And so I sat down with him for 45 minutes, asked some questions. And I'll tell you this from a counseling, a mentoring, and a law enforcement perspective. You want to get someone to talk, have them talk about themselves. People love to talk about themselves. So the more you are curious about them, the more they're going to open up. Okay. Don't criticize, but empathize. There is nothing more, and Michael and Adam can probably attest to this, that youth hate than an adult saying, well, back in my day, right? They don't want to hear about back in your day because we ain't back in your day, right? We're in this day and we're in the current environment, right? So we have to meet them where they're at. They don't want to hear about how we had to walk up, you know, a hill in the snow both ways, right? They want to hear about what's going on now. So don't criticize. Don't try to tell them that they shouldn't do this and they shouldn't do that. That's not what you're there for. Empathize with the situation that they're in right now, right? Understand the difficulties they have and be curious about those difficulties. Meet the mentee where they are at, but be your authentic self. Don't pretend like if I were to that anime situation, if I were to pretend like I knew anime, he would have called me out in a heartbeat, right? And I would look like a liar, right? We can't pretend like we know more than we do. So when it comes to technology, don't act like you know something, whether it's a video game or about an application or whatever, right? If you don't know that, meet them where they are at. Again, a lot of it is about being curious about them, being curious about what they're doing and what they're engaging with.
No, this is so good. And you're right. Y'all do a great job of just like really connecting, getting the boys like super engaged and active. Um, I mean, I'm really impressed with this work. And you're right. Like, as soon as you start talking about what you did back in your day, as the kids say, you're cooked because you're cooked. They're not trying to hear it. So, Michael and Adam, if you could like wave a magic wand and change anything about how adults or mentors approach technology with young people, like what would that be?
I would say it's just really good for uh mentors to have like a deeper kind of like a deeper what's the word? Understanding like of social media and of like the kind of times we're in. We like as children, we kind of like to be online. We kind of like to be about, we like talking to our friends on social media. So I think it's good to just be really like aware of that and empathize with that. So that's that's really important.
And on top of that, I think it would be a good idea to dedicate an event to online safety and also highlight the repercussions that your online presence can have. Because I know people that are trying to get hired, but due to what they post online, there's like complications with their employers. So like I want people to know early so they don't have to get affected that like what you put online can and will like affect you later depending on what you're posting. And the rest of what I was going to say has already been highlighted by Mr. Kristofi in regards to understanding rather than judging because as he was saying with the back in my day that has been used to like that comparison has been used to invalidate what people are going through now because times are always changing, everybody's always going through different things, and if I'm not being understood, why would I listen to you? Like that's how people operate. So if you're trying to help like the youth, the best way to help them is from understanding how they're operating and why they're operating instead of just saying no. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
No, this is good. So we're almost going to wrap up before we get to Q&A. So looking ahead, technology is going to become more and more integrated into our lives. What is exciting you all about that? You know, what's concerning you? And how do you see tech playing a role in mentoring relationships in the future? And this is to any of you.
I think it's really exciting that we'll have like lots of opportunity to connect with other people. Like usually face-to-face connections, like those are really important in your life and you'll have like a lot of them throughout your life, but you won't have as many like chances you'll get as you would get online. So it's like connecting online is almost like infinite number of like possibilities or opportunities to connect with different people of like different genders, different races, different social groups, all that. I mean, it's a really good opportunity for connections.
Thank you. So, David, for mentoring professionals who are listening right now, what is one thing or two or three things that they can do tomorrow to better support the young people that they work with around technology? What are some like, just practical first steps?
Yeah, Adam touched on this, but educate yourself, right? I don't want to hear an excuse. I don't know anything about technology, right? That's you putting your head in the sand. We can educate ourselves, and we must educate ourselves because this isn't going away. And if you are passionate about the youth, it's even more important to educate yourself. So as if you're running a mentor program or if you're part of a mentor program, incorporating technology education in your mentor training, right? We do 3 mentor trainings a year, and somewhere in there we incorporate some technology education, right? What platforms to use, what to look out for, those type of things. So, and then educate yourself on your own as a mentor, right? These are really important steps, not only to engage with your mentees, but as Michael pointed out, understand what they're going through, right? And have that empathy for them. I don't know how many of you have watched Ted Lasso, but I love the episode about be curious, not judgmental, right? Learn from your mentees, ask questions, be curious about their technology. These are things we can do at every event that we're at, right? Um, you know, are they on TikTok? Are they on Snapchat? Are they on Discord? What YouTube channels do they subscribe to? All these things are really important. If they're an artist, do they use a specific platform? I've talked to many mentees that like to do music, and there's a lot of platforms around developing music, right? Especially in the AI environment. So get engaged in understanding what they're doing in those environments and know your limits, right? Don't pretend and don't use a medium you aren't comfortable with, right? If you're not comfortable with X medium, right, then don't engage in that environment until you have educated yourself. So those are the sort of the 3 things I would say you can do immediately, right? That doesn't cost you any money. Doesn't It may cost you a little bit of time, but it's worth it in the end.
Thank you. Before we get into Q&A, just want to uplift some things in the chat. Downside, AI psychosis, jobs taken, like Adam mentioned, upsides, creating study guides. And this might go with someone asked a question, Adam, about how'd you use it to help you study for French, helping with recipes, that's because with the AI, you can just type in like, I need to know this, and it can create a study guide for you. You can even get it to spit questions. You know how you used to do flashcards with people? It can do questions and things like that for you. Environmental impact, yes, data centers, very detrimental. Yep, we are experiencing that right here uh, in Chesterfield, Virginia, the data centers that are being built and the pollution. Your health policy class encourage the use of AI. That's good to know. Yeah, I think we should probably go that route. Someone said they encourage group chats between parent, mentee, and mentor. I like that. All right, so I'm going to turn it back over to Jake. I know there were lots and lots of questions in the Q&A, so let's get into it.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, first, thank you all for this presentation and such great tips and tricks and advice for our audience. I have a question actually. So I'm going to first pose this to the folks in the audience. I want to see like what the synergy is here. So in the audience, type in the chat, what do you think are the most popular platforms that young people are on today? So that could be social media, it could be other apps, websites. Type in like 1 or 2 that you think, okay, perfect. Switch, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram. Michael and Adam, I'm going to ask you this in just a second to see what your perspective is. Seen a lot of TikTok, a lot of Snapchat, YouTube, Instagram. Okay. So yeah, for my first question for you, Michael and Adam, from your perspective, either yourself or your friends, your peers, what would you say are the most popular websites, apps that you're all finding yourselves on?
Well, I definitely think that it was TikTok maybe a year ago or so. Everybody was obsessed with TikTok. Everybody still loves TikTok, I mean. But after like the ban, like TikTok got banned for like a day or so. I feel like a lot of people went over to Instagram and a lot of people kind of stayed there. And so there's a lot of like usage of, I'd say, Instagram and TikTok. And there's a lot more users on Instagram now, I feel like, than there were before. So
Yeah, thank you for that, Michael.
For me, it'll be YouTube and Snapchat. For most of my friends, it's like TikTok, Instagram. Some people with Discord, but I'd say like most of the time it's like
Yeah.
Instagram and TikTok. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So like the expected ones. I was wondering if there were any like brand new ones that people were just not thinking about. I feel like that's what I hear a lot from parents or mentors of like, there's always a new website or app that I don't know about, but it sounds like uh people are kind of in the same boat. But I appreciate the nuance there, especially Adam, that you added around people are kind of moving back to Instagram, which is really interesting. And so we have a lot of great questions in the chat. I'll start with this one, still also directed to Michael and Adam. This person is wondering, and I think you answered it somewhat, especially in the last question that we had asked in the presentation. But if you could tell young people your age anything when it comes to the stuff that you've talked about today, what would it be? Or you could think of if you have mentees or other younger youth in your lives, what would you want to tell them about technology?
so just kind of like what I would want to tell them.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Yeah. So I just tell them to be safe. I mean, it is a dangerous world we live in, and social media can make it more dangerous. I mean, that's a fact in and of itself. But yeah, so I think it's really important to be safe, but you should also not be too, what's the word? Like closed off from other people, because I feel like on social media there is a lot of safety concerns and there's a lot of uh there's a lot more opportunities of like what's the word? Group meeting, social meetings, like different people. There's a lot of opportunities to meet them, but there's also opportunity for you to get like I don't know, isolated in a community, whether that be more like a local community or even like a bigger community. Like, I feel like you see a lot of influencers around, and those influencers might get like get like hate comments about something that really isn't that bad of a thing that they might have done. Like, they might have, who knows, said like a cuss word on stream or made like a bad comment, but it's like it's like that they shouldn't really isolate that person for making one mistake. I mean, you should judge a person off of what they've done for the community as a whole, and you shouldn't socially isolate people. So,
Yeah, that's huge. I'm hearing a lot of give people grace, understand that one mistake doesn't make a whole person. I really appreciate that. Yeah, Michael, what about you?
I would just tell the youth to be conscious with you're doing, with what you're doing, you know, because some people, a big part of social media is just brainless scrolling. So you might just find yourself in a random rabbit hole, and now you're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? Why is my For You page set up like this? And you know, I think it's just good to just be mindful of what you're putting your energy to, because like people spend a lot of their day scrolling. So what you see will like maybe not consciously, but at the very least, subconsciously impact how you think and like your beliefs as well. So just be mindful of what you're putting your energy to.
Yeah, thank you. I know sometimes I'm off TikTok now, but I know I used to be, I check the clock and I'd be like, how did an hour and a half pass by? And I've done nothing with my time. Yeah. I think that actually goes well into our next question, also again for Adam and Michael. And you might have already kind of shared some examples just in what you were saying now, but this person is maybe asking more personally, what are you both doing? What are some good habits that you've both tried to control your own tech use or draw boundaries? Again, either can go first.
I made sure that The reason why I'm mostly on YouTube, that's my main form of like social media, is for learning purposes, not necessarily just entertainment. Because I don't want to sit there and just not gain anything. So my rule I set for myself is that if I'm gonna spend a lot of time on my phone, it's gonna be to learn about something, not just like be entertained. And on top of that, if I'm around family, I'm not gonna be on my phone, you know? Like I might for a little bit, but that's not my presence is going to be with who I'm with. So if I'm with my family, my friends, or if there's an event going on, the phone is going to be the last thing that I'm going to be stuck onto. You know, that's how I operate.
Yeah, I agree with Michael. I think that there's a lot of things that I do honestly on my phone, probably more than I should. Uh, I do use Instagram a lot, but I also use like websites often. Like I get informed of news off of a website, like big events happening in the world internationally. I also use a website that is like a reading community. So it's like I read books on that website and then people have discussions on it. And I think it's just really interesting to learn other people's perspectives about the books I'm reading or like literary themes and stuff like that.
I love that. I love for both of your answers this common theme that you're doing a lot of learning online. And I think a lot of the time, um, older adults or mentors or parents are like, this kid is on their phone, they're just talking with their friends, or they're just playing games, or they're just scrolling mindlessly. But there's so much learning that you're both doing and really positive ways that you're using your phone. So at first glance, you're on your phone. But Adam, you're looking up literary themes and having discussions about books, which is amazing. Or Michael, you're doing other th learning on YouTube and bettering yourself. And so I think there's a really important piece there of like don't assume that young people are only using social media or their phones for one purpose. David, I saw you unmute. Anything else to add there?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the grounds of habits, one thing to touch on is just phone use when you're driving. A lot of, these kids, they observe maybe their parents doing it. So I would say again, modeling the behavior you want, but also there are great applications like Life 360 that parents can use to not only monitor where they're going and coming, but they also can monitor if they're using their phone while they're driving. It'll give you the amount of times they've touched their phone as they're driving. So there's tools out there, technology tools out there that you can use for those because driving and texting is a very, very dangerous thing, and they need to limit that.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think so. This next question will be mostly, I think, for David and Bianca. This person is wondering, to an earlier point that you were talking about, when you check in on mentor-mentee pairs who are texting, what do you check in about? What kinds of things are you checking in about with parents, mentors, mentees to make sure that they're texting safely?
Yeah, I mean, behaviors, right? We'll ask the parents if you're recognizing any change in behaviors, right? If the mentee has mentioned anything that they're uncomfortable with, because obviously, oftentimes the mentee won't come directly to myself or to the mentor, right? If they're uncomfortable, they're going to go to their parent or something like that. So we'll talk to the parents about any uncomfortableness, any behavior changes. We'll talk to the mentee how it's going, what their thoughts are. Obviously, we'll talk to them to parent as well as if they've reviewed any of the messaging, if there's anything that they're uncomfortable with. With the mentor, we'll just check in to see how the progression of the communication is going, and if they need any guidance. So we always tell our mentors that they don't have to make decisions on their own. We have a group of mentors in our program. It's group mentoring. So for every 20 mentees we have 10 mentors. So we always have a group chat with our mentors, and we always tell them they don't have to do it on their own. So that's why we check in and say, hey, do you need any guidance on how to communicate with this kid? um, you know uh, Teenagers are difficult to text with sometimes. I know, at least with my son, I'll say something and I get a lot of IKs, which is I know. Constantly IK. And I'm like, man, you know a lot, dude. You know a hell of a lot more than I did at your age. So, you know, having guidance on how to open up that communication is something we talk to the mentors about.
No, I would say all of the things that David shared. We also do encourage, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but we encourage parents and caregivers to occasionally scan those phones. Um, some people feel like it's an invasion of privacy, but you would be surprised at how much is happening across text and Instagram. I would say that's a big platform. The kids, like, they use Instagram like it's a text or phone service. But like, how is it that your child has a phone and you don't know what's going on in it? So we encourage that. Like, occasionally you should be scanning that phone, because just from a parenting standpoint, that's a safety measure right there, not just to monitor, what's happening with a mentoring program, but also like what's just generally happening in your child's life. And the kids they text so much, they don't delete stuff. Why? Maybe that's just my child. He don't delete anything. Like, when I check his phone, I see it all. So that's something that we encourage in our program. Like, don't be afraid to check that phone, check those messages. Yeah, they might get mad at you, but you're paying for that phone. Who cares? Go throw a fit and punch the sky.
Sure. Yeah. I think that leads well into the next question. And I think what I'm getting at with this question, they're asking, what if the mentor and the parent disagree about technology use, and the piece there of like, we want a mentor to add to the young person's web of support. We want when we know that when parents and caregivers feel involved, feel seen, feel included in the mentoring dynamic, mentoring outcomes are better. So like, how do you navigate if there's a disagreement in like technology values? Like if the mentor in that case, Bianca, was like, I don't want to check my kid's phone, or I don't think you should do that. Like, how would you all navigate those differences of opinion?
Well, ultimately, they are the parent. That's the bottom line on that. So there's not much more to say to that. We're just going to continue to create spaces where we can have these conversations, and we're not going to judge you. We always say this isn't a you and us or us and them. This is a we, like, because we're all in this together. Because a lot of our mentors, our staff, we're parents too. Our volunteers, we're parents too. So we're trying to figure it out. So ultimately, the parent or caregiver is going to have the bottom line. And a lot of times they want you to just hear what they're saying. So, okay, I hear that, and I can definitely understand that. You may offer them an alternative, but ultimately, they are the parent and they are the caregiver.
Yeah, thank you for that. David, anything else to add there?
Yeah, I would agree. It's ultimately up to the parent. But that being said, maybe the sort of disagreement is they're wanting some advice, right? I've had parents come to me and ask me, "Hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that?" Now, if you're in that space, right, you can give your opinion, right? But remember, just because you give advice doesn't mean they have to take it. So don't get offended if they don't take your advice. Um, but it is important to talk through these things, and I love that what Bianca said was like sometimes they just want to be heard. And oftentimes that's the benefit of counseling too in the profession that I am is people just want to be heard sometimes. They want to be validated. So if you can give them that, then you're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So I will tell you that, I disagree with David sometimes. like honestly, like he's a great supporter. So he's not he is a mentor, but he's over the program. But a lot of the times we can use him as a sounding board. He is a therapist and he's in law enforcement. And sometimes I will say things and David's disagreeing with me. And he's like, okay, let's run that back. Let's think it through this framework. And I'm like, no, I'm like, I'm cooked. I'm like, it's over. Like, I don't agree with you, but he always listens and tries to reframe things from me through the mind of a boy, through the mind of a man, through the mind of his experiences working with boys. So that's helpful. And I appreciate that he's listening to my point of view, but also acknowledging that your point of view is like very valid. That's something he will always say is like, yeah, your point of view is very valid. Like I understand why you feel that way. So
Yeah, because every kid is different, right? And who knows their kid better than their parent, right? I'm not going to sit there and tell Bianca that she doesn't know her child, right? Because she does very well. She's raised him. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with disagreement. I wish more people in this world would understand that it's okay to disagree with one another.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, this example perfectly shows just how much intention and effort, David, you and your program have put into building these relationships with parents, because like that's not maybe a conversation that would be as effective if you're a program and you don't have those relationships with your parents. And so you can have these more difficult conversations where you're navigating these disagreements or just kind of being a sounding board when you put that time to make parents and caregivers feel seen. So I really appreciate you both kind of going through that example. The last question that we have for the Q&A, and then I have one kind of closing question for you all, is for David and Bianca. Can you elaborate a little bit more on your technology education training for mentors?
Yeah, so ours is a few parts. One is obviously what our policy is around technology use with our mentees. The second is, how to set boundaries within technology. And then we also talk about how to use that technology, and I usually give some examples of communication and some effective ways of communicating online with your mentee. And then the last piece of that education is around some of the threats that the kids are dealing with that we've talked about: scams, grooming, bullying, these type of things that they deal with.
yeah, our training is typically going to be around policies and around boundaries that we're setting within the organization around online tech use and interaction. Other than that, we don't go too much further than that. So, for example, a policy that we have is typically you're not going to be friends with someone, a mentee online, or we will give our mentors and facilitators tools on how to help our youth navigate technology. But other than those policies and those tools, we don't typically go into much further than that.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So for my last question to kind of close things out, it's kind of a two-part, and you can pick for all of you, you can pick which one you want to answer. Either you could answer what's a good experience that you've had with technology, or you could just do any general closing thoughts that you have before we close out the webinar. And so whoever feels excited to start, and we'll go around in a circle. So again, it could be either a good experience that you had with technology or just general closing thoughts for the audience.
Um, I think that I've connected a lot with like as I was saying, like the reading kind of community. And I think that there's certain people that I've met from there that have like guided me through kind of my reading journey, I guess. And it's like they've recommended me good books, they recommended me bad books too. But overall, I think it's a good experience because getting I'm getting like more, getting more like out there. I'm getting more reading experience, and it's just exciting for me to do that kind of stuff. So,
I love that. I wish I had that. I hated reading in high school, and I've rediscovered my love of it now, but I think communities like that are so important. Thanks for that, Adam. Who wants to go next? Again, the question was either a good experience that you've had with technology or just general closing thoughts.
One of the greatest experiences that I've had in regards to being online is learning something from online and being able to actually use it. You know, I've been able to jump somebody's car off of watching a YouTube video on how to do that within like the span of 5 minutes. And I also learned how to like the steps to, what is it called? Taking a flat tire out and putting it in the spare, you know? And I would not have known that unless I like looked it up, you know? And that's like the dopest part, like actually applying the information that you're learning from online, you know?
I still pull my phone out to get that video up on how to jump a car. Which do you do, red or black first every single time? Love that. Thanks, Michael.
Sure, I'll share. I have a very busy work schedule as an executive director, and I will say that the use of AI has definitely been helpful from everything from grant writing to drafting newsletters and things like that. And so I've figured out how to ethically and meaningfully use AI. So it has helped me in my career, but also, as a parent, my son, he does like to connect like over memes. Like he loves to send me memes and funny reels or tag me and stuff on Instagram. And it is hilarious. So I'm finding ways to connect with him over that and opening my mind. Although when I send him stuff, I just get left on red, but he just leaves me on read. But he sends me stuff all the time. So he's always, thinking of like just funny stuff me and him can relate to. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll add a positive and a small little closing remark. I've liked the use of technology with my two sons and sports. We share a lot of communication around sports. We do fantasy football. We love sports, and it's a way for us to connect, in that space. The closing point of view would be I am exceptionally proud of both Michael and Adam. They are wonderful young men, and they exhibited that today. And I appreciate you guys putting yourself out there. It's not an easy thing to do in front of however many people are on here. So very, very proud of both of you.
Yeah, everybody yep, I'm seeing the applause come in. Everybody give Adam and Michael and Bianca and David a huge round of applause. This was such a great webinar. I really appreciate you all and your openness to share your own experiences, sharing tips and tricks for our audience at all levels, for program leaders, if there are parents in the audience, if there are other young people in the audience. I think folks are going to be able to take a lot away from today's webinar. So thank you all. For some additional resources as we wrap up, as always, you can email us with any feedback or questions at this email, collaborative webinar series at mentoring.org. We have, I believe it's now 23 amazing mentor affiliates across the country that can provide more localized support with training, resources, public awareness, and advocacy for your mentoring program. You can go to our website, mentoring.org/affiliates, or when these slides are posted, click that link to find your local affiliate. And then just a little plug for the 2026 National Mentoring Summit, which is coming up in February 4th to the 6th. If you're not familiar, it's our annual conference that brings together all sorts of folks in the mentoring field for a ton of workshops, main stage plenaries, networking opportunities, things like that, just to bring folks together to unite the mentoring movement. You can register still at mentoring.org/summit and learn more. We can go on to the next slide. So remember that we'll have a 3 to 4 minute anonymous survey that'll pop up on your screen to for you to let us know how we did. Please fill that out. It's really helpful, and it also inform our planning for next year in terms of future topics. And then, as I was saying before, within a week, you'll receive an email with information on how to download the slides, the recording, and the resources that we've shared today. They'll also be posted to our website. And then just one more slide. See you in 2026. So our plans for the CMWS webinar series will be coming out in early 2026. We have a lot of exciting stuff that we're going to be doing. But again, whether this was your first webinar of the year or your last, or well, it's everybody's last, or your 12th, we really appreciate you being here with us and appreciate all of your engagement. Again, a huge thank you to Bianca for planning this, and then David, Michael, and Adam for just being incredible panelists. Hope everybody has a wonderful and warm holiday season, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.